Hey folks, my name is Alex, and in this video we're going to work on the delete function and add the logic for deleting records from our database using Prisma. Let's jump into it. The first thing that we'll need to do is scaffold the function using the Azure Functions CLI. So on a new terminal window, ensure that you're in the API directory and create a new function using the func new command with the name DeleteEmployee using the HTTP trigger template and an anonymous auth level. The CLI creates a new folder called DeleteEmployee with two files, a function.json file, that's the configuration file for the function, and an index.js that will contain the logic for the function. Now open up the function.json file and make a few adjustments. Update the default method to delete, and then add a route property right after the methods to point the function to employees, as well as an ID request parameter. And finally, update the names property value from res to $return. Next, navigate to the index.js file and clear the default contents inside the function. Before we write any code, let's add some pseudocode in the form of comments to guide us in the implementation. We know that the function will receive an ID from the request parameter to delete the employee record, and then we'll add a check to ensure that the employee record exists, and if they do, we'll go ahead and delete the record. Let's get started. We'll import the Prisma and error utilities from the shared folder at the top of the file, which we'll use in just a moment. And then inside the exported function, add a try-catch statement. The function's logic, like the database query and the check, will be handled inside try, and any uncaught errors will be taken care of by the catch. Next, we'll destructure the ID from the request parameter, and then we'll add a query to first check if the employee already exists in our database using the ID from the request parameter. And over here, we'll use the employee.findUnique method provided by Prisma, adding curly brackets inside it and creating a filter using the where property. And then I'll pass in the ID from the request parameters into the filter. If the employee doesn't exist, we'll use the handle error utility to return a status code of 44 and an error message stating that the employee wasn't found. And if the employee exists, we'll go ahead and delete the record using the employee.delete method and add curly brackets inside it, and then provide a filter using the where property, passing in the ID from the request parameter. And once the query is done executing, we'll return a status code of 204, meaning that there's no content. Finally, if our function runs into an uncaught exception, we'll log out a message saying that it failed. We'll also log out the error and then use the handle error function to return a status code of 500 and the error inside the response. Let's now start the functions locally and test out the delete employee. So open a new terminal window and start the server, and you should see the delete employee function successfully running over here. In my working directory, I have an api.http file that contains a sample delete request to the employee's route. And there's an ID here, which we can confirm using the getEmployee function. So I'll go ahead and send a request to delete the employee, and we get back a 204 status code. And if we make the request again, we should receive a status code of 44 because the record doesn't exist anymore. And finally, on the Azure SQL Query Editor, I'll run the query for all employees to confirm that the data was persisted successfully. And inside the results tab, we can see that the record doesn't exist anymore. Let's recap what we covered in this video. We created the DeleteEmployee function, and in the function we added a database query to confirm that the employee record first exists. And if they existed, we went ahead and deleted the record from our database. We also added some error handling to our function to take care of any uncaught exceptions. And after that, we tested out the function using the REST client VS Code extension, and finally queried the data using the Azure SQL Query Editor. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.